take Tesla.
Floods, plagues, volcanoes.
So if somebody says to you, saving the planet, no, we're not.
The planet's just going to shake the human race off like a bad case of fleas.
As your Prime Minister.
It gets to that rev limiter quick. We're doing some miles an hour.
I'm late for work and my fuel light has just come on, so I'm going to be even later for work.
Yet another podcast, everyone. Welcome. My name is Paul.
And my name is Aki.
And we don't normally talk like this. So today...
Speak for yourself.
Go well with your red high heel shoes. So today is going to be quite a... It's going to be one of those ones where those people that do actually watch it will have an opinion. And that's absolutely fine. Stick your opinions in the comments below. And we'll reply with our opinions. Because it's that sort of almost thorny subject of EVs. And for the
I
benefit...
thought you were going to say politics.
Well, politics are going to feature in this video, unfortunately. And predominantly battery electric vehicles, so not hybrids in themselves, but the full-on battery EV. Because in the UK, although the dates have changed, the reality is current legislation at the time of filming, by 2035, only BEVs, brand new, will be able to be sold. Obviously, that means that current existing combustion cars can still be on the road, but they wouldn't be able to sell any brand new ones. And I think current legislation suggests that from 2030 it can only be hybrids or full battery electric vehicles. So I'll put on my little notes here, because I'm going to be reading notes a bit more on this video, everyone. Something that I wanted to say at the beginning, and that is I'm not anti-EV, and I'm not saying that to protect myself from the comments. I am me and I have an opinion, and I will say that opinion. But I'm not anti-EV, and I've driven an EV and quite enjoyed driving EV. But I am old, which some people therefore would call me a fossil, and more about that in a minute. But my complaint with the whole EV thing is it seems to be you have those people on one side of the fence that are full on sticking with petrol, and you've got this side of the fence that are full on, dare I say, EV evangelists that only look for EVs. And there's like warring factions, and neither side wants to sort of meet in the middle. That's not going to answer the problem that we currently face, is it? So I think for me, I just wanted to get that out of the way straight away. No matter what's said in this video, I'm not in any basic way anti-EV. What I am not, as we'll find out as the video goes on, is convinced that it's the only future that we're going to have. Anyway, I've explained about the government policy. I wanted to just give a couple of numbered facts, and then I'm going to let my learned colleague jump in because I don't want to take over the video. In the UK, there are, and I quote, around 42 million vehicles on the road. That's quite a few. At the time, there's about 1.3 million EVs on the road, so you can do the maths. So, as of 2024, almost 20% of new vehicle purchases were indeed EVs. And for those people that want to see nothing but EVs, that sounds like a good number. It was only 2024, and the legislation doesn't kick in till 2030, as we've said. But if we think about that for a minute, that sounds good in principle, but there's a few things that are changing. For instance, the UK government has now removed, or at least reduced, the incentives for buying an EV. And what I mean by that, of course, is tax incentives, whether that be BIC, which is benefit in kind, of course, if you've got a company car, or whether it's the actual VED, or vehicle excise duty, that we have in the UK, or road taxes, as old people like to call it. It used to be completely free, whereas now there is a payment to be had. The government have also introduced what I would call the posh car tax. Do you know what that is, Ak? So basically,
I would say it's a tax for posh cars.
It does what it says on the tin, if that's the case. The posh car tax is kind of any car or any vehicle that you buy brand new that's over £40,000 incurs an additional tax rate.
Really?
It incurs a balloon payment at the beginning, which is over £2,000.
What?
Yes. It's the bike person again, look. It incurs a tax burden initially of over £2,000. It's about £2,000.
As in something you pay on top of the purchase price when you buy it?
On top of the purchase price. And this isn't because, just to be clear, because dealers and that could be a little crafty, this isn't about it's over £40,000 at the price you're paying. It's whatever the retail vehicle price is. So it's not like they can fudge the figures and make it underneath £40,000. So if the retail price is X and it's over £40,000, it's subject to this additional tax. But almost worse than the £2,000+ balloon payment that you pay at the beginning, from years 1 to 6, so for 5 years after that, you pay an additional balloon payment on top of your VED. So, for instance, let's do round numbers, your road tax is £200. You'd pay an additional, I think something like £260 on top for those 5 years.
So double road tax for the first 5 years.
For those 5 years. Because it's over 40,000. If you think of the current EVs that are available on the UK market, many of them fall into the £40,000+ price bracket. So what the government have effectively done, the same government that is telling
penalise you for owning an EV.
That's telling us that they're telling us they're doing everything to encourage us to be in an EV, has suddenly added a tax. I know there are EVs available now that are obviously below 40,000 and some really funky little EVs that are now under 20,000. But there are many EVs, of course, that fall into this ban. So I don't think the government is kind of doing as much as they say they are if they want to keep encouraging
Well, the
people
government
to
only
get
do
into
what's in
EVs.
their best interest. But that's for a different video.
So, I've said enough at the beginning. What's your thought on EVs? And from a bike point of view, of course, because there are bikes
Yeah,
that are electric. Have you ridden one?
No, but I want to, because I've seen a few videos of people who have. Now, before we talk about electric bikes, what I don't know is whether this 2035 only new EVs sold in the UK, is that cars and bikes? Is that all
My
vehicles?
understanding is all vehicles, yeah.
What, so even a heavy goods vehicle
Yes, which
will
will
have to be electric?
Yeah.
I don't get wrong, I'm not laughing because I know they don't currently exist. I know they currently exist, but
Not to the point that they're going to need to be to do that.
Fine. So all new... Oh, now I'm getting a bit upset now. If it's going to be 2035, you can't buy a brand new petrol bike. It's got to be a bloody EV bike. But that leads me on to something that I think I've probably spoken about historically, whereas if you've got any money right now, unlike me, I would seriously consider stockpiling the nearer we get petrol and diesel cars and motorcycles.
Ooh, I like
because
where
the
this is
moment you cannot buy a new car or a new bike being petrol, and
That
you've
goes
just
brum,
happened
brum.
to got, you know, last year's model that you've decided to stick in a container or a garage somewhere, what is going to happen to the price of it? Exactly.
For us older people, I guess the price is going to go up.
Yes, it is going to go up.
Because
So-
the demand will be there, won't it?
And the fact that means I won't be able to buy myself a brand new bike when I've actually got money when I retire. Because it'll be fucking... Sorry, editor.
Ack likes to test my editing skills.
Oh.
We can leave the swearing in. It's just a different tick. It's just a different tick box.
The fact that I will not be allowed to have the choice because it's been taken away from me. No. I'm not against EVs per se.
Okay.
I'm against the idea that the government seems to think that is...
Enforced.
Well, no, they seem to think they're Mandalorians, don't they?
That's a good one.
This is the way. It is not the way.
In your opinion. And that's why I said at the beginning of this video, it's going to be a very opinionated video, isn't it? War in factions, Ack.
Let me talk back about the motorcycle EV side of things. The reason why I would like to own one, but there'd be a stipulation there whereby it's the same with EVs in general. If you don't do a lot of miles and you can do your daily stuff and then get back home to charge it, as opposed to having to take a lottery and try to find an EV station that's open and or you haven't got a goddamn queue to use, I don't really see the point in having an EV. I really don't.
Okay.
Performance-wise for a motorcycle, the reason why I do want to own one is because I've seen some videos of people owning them and it's very appealing to have all the power.
Immediately.
Yes. And the torque figure, for example, you understand Newton meters
Yeah,
of
I
torque,
guess
don't
it's probably
you?
almost flat at the top, isn't it?
Well, it's just flat constantly. I mean, you understand torque figures if I
do.
quote them to you.
Yeah.
A particular bike by Energica. I wish I could remember what it's called. But
We'll
it
try and
kinda
find
looks-
a picture and put it on screen.
Yeah, and we'll put the title on screen as well. Energica. I think it's called an Xperia.
Okay.
But anyway, peak Newton meters of torque, 666.
Yes. That's massive.
which means you can be doing literally any speed, pin the throttle, and it'll just throw you off the back. And from a purely motorcycle, red-blooded, hedonistic point of view, that's very appealing.
Of course it is.
Range is obviously, quite frankly, even with cars, still a goddamn joke.
Well, I'm going to talk about range and anxiety, of course.
But going back to why I don't think it's the way, because there are many ways which obviously need to be explored. There's obviously there's the hydrogen thing, there's the synthetic fuel thing.
Cleaner fuels, yeah.
And there's a couple of other things which are kind of bubbling away. But my issue is fundamentally with the government deciding that there is only going to be one way, and that's how or where we're going to legislate so you can only go one way.
Yeah.
Which I think is wrong, because A, it's not the way, or rephrase, it's not the only way. Time might turn out to
I
say
think we're
that
on the same side of that one.
it is not the best way. But what really F's me off about EVs is the principle that I'm told, well,
This is how it is.
this is how it is. I mean, who the damned hell do they think the government are, that they get to control every single facet of our
Like a
lives?
dictatorship act.
It is a bloody dictatorship.
So if I could pick up on a couple of fantastic points. Number one, when you said about as long as you can get out there, do what you're going to do, come back and then charge, we have to remember, and yes, I know they are constantly looking at solutions to all of the problems with charging infrastructure. But there are, I don't know, 40% plus people that have no ability to charge at home. It could be
Agreed.
because you live in a flat, built up area, whatever.
No, agreed.
I've seen solutions where there's standpoints on the curbside. I know there'll be ways of which this will get sorted, and I know there are counter arguments that also say, well, that's fine because you might be charging at work, or you might just always charge at this external charger, and that alone shouldn't be a reason why you don't adopt it. I kind of get that. But I think it's something like over 40% of people can't home charge. So there's one issue. Range anxiety, I don't know. I guess I can only speak from a car point of view, but if you're willing to spend the money, because of course these vehicles tend to be more expensive at the moment for reasons that, you know, because of how they're manufactured. If you want to spend the money, the range anxiety is definitely reducing now. And if you think about, we're talking 2030, 2035, I have every confidence that battery tech will get there as far as range is concerned. We've already got cars that will do in excess of 400 miles on a charge.
It's not the range purely because of the range.
Okay.
The issue is the amount of EV stations, for example, I don't think are in line with the amount of EV vehicles.
They're not
for
keeping pace.
Yeah, for example, look at petrol stations. They're absolutely everywhere.
Because we've had fuel for a while.
Yeah. And the other issue is you go to a petrol station, unless there's a crisis or they've run out of fuel, which arguably is rare in both cases.
Yes.
You've got to turn up and there'll be a free pump, and within 5-10 minutes you'll be away.
You see, you've hit the nail. It's the timing.
Yes.
Typically, 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a push. If Mrs. Miggins is too busy doing a weekly shop and you're waiting for that petrol pump because she's not using the petrol station just to fill up, or Mr. Miggins, let's not be, biased here. Mr. Miggins is in there buying half of the world goods and then finally comes back out to the car.
Half of the world fair trade goods.
Or then they come out with the shopping and then they go to the cash point and queue a third world debt. And then finally remember that they've got a car parked at the pump.
When they do get in their car, they faff around far too long before moving away. But
Yeah, they seem to.
Anyway.
So let's say even 10 minutes. It's a big ask at the moment for an EV to be charged from, I think they typically say from like 20% to 80%.
Yeah, isn't it like 45 minutes or an hour?
Which apparently for existing battery technology is better for the battery.
Okay.
So charging from say 20% to 80% could be half an hour, let's say.
But
half an hour, see, if we go back to this war in factions, the petrol people will say, well, I'm not waiting for half an hour because I can fill up my car in 5 to 10 minutes. The other side of the war in factions for the EV people will say, well, if you're on a long drive which has caused you to need to recharge, you should be having a break anyway. I have an issue with that. Number one, it assumes that I'm on the motorway and I've pulled up at the service station, for instance. Number one, I don't want to eat service station food that's overpriced. and I don't want to be told that I have to wait there for half an hour whilst I'm using a charger, because that's not for me. That's just not a thing. Give me the 5-minute refill, not the 30-minute refill.
Yeah, hence my comment about if you could do it at home, come home from work, you've done your daily driver, plug it in, get up in the morning, away you go.
I regularly visit family in Bristol, right? And the journey, roughly, let's say, is a 280 mile round trip or something. There are cars now, albeit out of my price range, that will of course do that on one charge and then won't have to think about it. But people that tell me otherwise for the other EVs that I could afford, that it's absolutely acceptable for me to go and plug into a fast charger somewhere on the service station for 30 minutes when I wouldn't otherwise have to do it, that is a problem. It's a journey I regularly do. I want to do it knowing I can do it on a tank of fuel.
Well, I don't think it's just... Well, there is obviously the issue with time spent whilst waiting for it to charge, but the biggest issue for me, how often have you seen a queue to get onto a bay or a couple of bays?
I can only comment on what I've seen. There's a particular service station near Redditch, and I normally see a queue of vehicles there.
And it's just like, come on, really? You've just spent 100 grand on a Tesla, for example, which I'm guessing your figures will tell you it was arguably the most popular EV in the UK right now.
Yeah, because they shook up the market, and to be fair,
Agreed.
I'm not a Tesla, what they call fanboy, but I appreciate what Tesla have achieved.
I can't comment for Tesla power station, because apparently if you go to a Tesla power station, they can give you a certain amount of charge within a very, very quick period of time.
Yeah, it's a fast charge.
But the point is, it's not like going to a petrol station where unless there's a fuel crisis or a strike or they run out of fuel,
It's going to take you
which
5
is all
or
very
10 minutes.
you can go straight to a pump. And outside of the fact it's 5 minutes versus 40 minutes, the point is you can go straight to a pump and start your business.
Yes, you can.
You can't do that with an EV.
Not at the moment. I say not at the moment because, and here's one of my gripes, shall we say. And there's going to be links under this video, by the way, everyone. Please go and check the links out, because any information that I'm giving that's specific is come from the links that are underneath the video. There will also be a link to a blog that I personally do, that Ak may not even know that I do, bless you, so you can start reading that blog, which I do occasionally, where I've done 2 separate blogs about my view on EVs, and some of that is getting discussed in this video today. But go and check that blog out, and go and let me know in the comment section whether you agree with any of it.
We say blog
or
as
all
in a
of it.
written article published online.
Something to read.
Fine. Yeah. That's very old school, isn't it? Writing stuff down.
I love talking,
Wow.
so I just find that as long as I can
Yeah,
type
yeah,
fast
yeah.
enough, it's the problems I've got is, number one, the people on this side of the fence will say, well, the battery tech is improving all the time, and we're going to get to a point where we get to I don't know whether it's called a dry battery or whatever it is, where you're going to be able to almost instantly recharge it.
Ah, you mean a dry battery as opposed to a current wet cell battery?
Yeah. So
are they called wet cells where you've got
I don't know,
some
but it's
plates
lithium, isn't
and
it?
liquid?
It's basically having
It's
thousands,
a chemical reaction between
Yes.
the liquid and the plates. or
thousands of
something.
iPhone batteries
Yeah,
sitting
yeah.
underneath your backside, basically,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So that's the other thing with EVs that I think is, well, it's obviously the way it is. I don't want to steal your thunder, but there's the weight of them.
Yes.
The first one. And the second thing, we're supposed to be going EV because it's greener for the planet. However, what do you know about the process of mining the raw materials to
The
actually
precious
make
metals?
the batteries? Yeah, the precious
Well, they're
metals.
not all precious metals, to be fair. Although there are precious metals used, ironically, not just for the batteries, but the precious metals used, I think, for the motors themselves. I've noted
How
that
about
down
the
somewhere.
ecological damage caused in the process of obtaining these raw materials?
Depends who you ask.
Agreed. It
So-
depends who you ask. But what is the actual truth?
Right. So
Because
at the moment, the production methods and how we source definitely makes the production of a BEV worse for the environment in the short term.
go on, how's it going to
So
improve
you
long
need,
term then?
therefore, that car to be on the road for X amount of years or
But
miles.
how is the process of obtaining the raw materials going to be more eco-friendly in the long term then?
Well, because, of course, at the point of use, the car isn't emitting anything. So over time, you lose that initial burst of bad stuff for the environment, shall we say?
Really? Even
Yeah.
if they're still producing the same amount of vehicles year upon
Yes,
year
because
upon
at
year?
some point, because they're not polluting anything at the point of use, you do break even, and then you do ultimately.
Is that because fossil fuels are going to be on the decline, the emissions there versus...
No, if you take two identical vehicles and one is a BEV and one is petrol, Volvo did a thing on it years ago, and people don't like this being quoted because technology's moved on now. But basically, the production of the BEV obviously was a lot more environmental damaging at the point of production, but of course at the point of use it's cleaner. Whereas the petrol one was less at the point of production, but will always pollute to a certain level.
When it's, yeah,
there's a break-even point and there's a
right,
crossover
yeah, that
point.
makes sense.
There are many discussions about how many years or how many miles that break-even is. I'm not going to discuss that today, and it probably varies depending on the battery technology, and it probably varies on the manufacturer. There will be a point where there's a crossover. Where the EV argument falls down a little is for those extremes, which are things like the car is written off, it's involved in an accident, and doesn't reach its point where it's broke even. So it's had all that horrendous stuff for the environment at production, and it's been written off. So you've never had the benefit of getting to that crossover point.
And you're going to have to
being
dispose
clean.
of the battery.
And then you're going to have to purchase another one. Then you've got the discussion of recycling. The pro EV people will say, well, it's nearly all recyclable already. Well, if we could talk facts for a minute rather than hope, the fact is the recycling at the moment, percentage-wise, is very low. So we need to get better at doing that if we're going to do that.
Yeah.
And of course, like you've already touched on, fuels are getting cleaner. And you know, if we forget 2015 Volkswagen and Dieselgate, which is what caused half of these problems.
Volkswagen.
Because it did.
Yeah, the emission scandal.
Petrol cars today, all diesel, but petrol cars today are really very clean.
Yeah, they are.
So the fact that they're very clean has to bring in the discussion of how much are we trying to achieve. So I need to come to a couple of notes that I've got because they're quite important to the discussion. And as I've said, leave your thoughts in the comments, everyone. Battery tech is improving all the time. There are manufacturers that maybe you would be surprised to hear that are choosing the cheaper version. They're sourced from China, pretty much, wherever the vehicle
cheaper
is
version
made,
of the battery.
of the chemistry makeup of the batteries.
Okay, fine.
Which has two problems. One, they're cheaper, which sounds good in principle, but we all know cheaper isn't normally better, is
Well,
it?
it's not always better.
Unfortunately, the cheaper option, whilst good for the manufacturer who's building the car, they're also, and again, all these are relative, they're also the more at risk if they have something called thermal runaway. And you can't talk about EVs without someone getting excited
When you say thermal runaway,
that is where
when the
vehicle
Tesla catches fire and it's all over the internet.
say Tesla. Any battery electric vehicle.
Sorry,
it's not. To be fair to Tesla, it's not unique to Tesla.
Okay.
It's unique to the battery.
Is that basically
itself.
the battery just going bang or pop?
If you think of the thousands of cells,
Yeah.
if one goes rogue, it'll go into thermal runaway. And the problem with thermal runaway is when that one cell
Can
goes
you
rogue.
explain to me what thermal runaway is?
It's basically, from my understanding, it's a chemical reaction
Yep.
that's self-fueling. In other words,
Explosive.
it's got all what it needs.
Oh, bang.
So what will happen is, if one cell goes rogue,
Yep.
it will take all the other cells with it. And the problem with that is, not only is it
Driving around an atom bomb.
it's not that it will go immediately bang, because it doesn't. The problem is, as the fire engulfs the vehicle from the battery upwards, the fires can't be put out with conventional water. So, because they're self-fueling. So whereas you're trying to stop the oxygen with a normal fire, there's nothing to stop. It's got all the fuel it needs. So it can theoretically burn for hours or days. And there's very little you can do about it. The second thing is, if you ever watch a YouTube video and someone's filming an EV on fire and it's, oh, they're all excited because they're going to get lots of YouTube clicks because they've managed to catch an EV that's on fire, which, yes, they're rare, but when they happen, they're worse than petrol fires. What they don't necessarily appreciate while they're filming it is, you do not want to inhale what is coming out of there. You do not want it touching your skin. The reason that the fire department has to put hazmat suits on, in a typical fire with an EV, when the person is filming it on their mobile phone, you certainly don't want to be upwind, downwind, whichever way it is coming. It's releasing things like carbon monoxide. It's releasing something called hydrogen cyanide. It's not
Cyanide?
It's not a case of just. It's not a case of just breathing this in. No. You do not want this touching your skin.
Damn.
It is absolutely terrible. There was a particular famous fire. I don't know whether it was in Korea or somewhere, where it was self-starting. It was an EV that went into thermal runaway. There was no warning. The car was just parked. It's not like it's had a long run. It's literally just sitting there doing nothing, and then one of the cells go rogue, of which there are thousands. It was in some kind of underground parking lot for apartments, I guess, or something. It took out a number of cars and has ruined some part of the apartment block. Because when these fires go, they go, and they are very difficult to stop. I think somewhere in Germany they've developed a dousing tank or something where you have to effectively pick up the burning car and put it in the dousing tank and leave it in the tank. So putting out a fire, yes, they're rare on an EV versus a petrol fire, is not the same. There are also people that say there's lots more petrol fires than there are EV fires. There are, but there's a couple of things about that. Number one, there's a lot more petrol cars on the road.
True.
There's a lot more petrol cars that are older.
Yep.
How have they been maintained? Has the owner added stuff to it? There are lots of reasons why a car can catch fire. With a battery electric vehicle, typically it's because a cell goes rogue. Anyway, I touched on the cheaper versus the more expensive chemical makeup. It might surprise you, but as of today, filming this now, BMW and Mercedes, those quality manufacturers, typically use the cheaper makeup of battery. So when you follow some big Mercedes car that's proudly got that little green banner on the left-hand side of the number plate, because in the UK you can have a little green banner on the number plate to show that you're green, they're using the cheaper setup. Whereas, ironically, Chinese manufacturers like BYD, they tend to use the better chemical. Who would have thought it?
No, agreed.
You walk into your Mercedes dealership, I bet they don't explain that when you're buying a 50, 60, 70,000 pound plus car.
It's all the corporate investors, isn't it? They want their percentage.
So,
what costs are we going to cut this year?
costs. Yeah, exactly.
What manufacturing costs are we going to cut this year?
And with battery tech,
I want my 10%.
the battery tech allows them to save quite a lot of money.
Really?
But unfortunately, that battery tech is a little bit more prone, all things being relative, to thermal runaway than the other battery tech. And yes, battery tech will keep improving. I'm quite confident we'll get to a point where thermal runaway is pretty much non-existent. What I don't like is seeing people that have properties in the UK at least, where they have the charger, for instance, inside the garage and they have a bedroom above it. No, thank you. If I do ever have a BEV and it's charging, it'll be somewhere outside.
Yeah, my neighbour's got one on the wall outside.
Because at the end of the day, yes, the chance is low, but if it does happen, it's not very pleasant. What does my head in, and remember, I'm not on one side of the fence here, I'm literally sitting on the fence. Not because I'm scared to be that side or that side, I'm in the middle. Two things. One, they call people that drive petrol cars, some people call, dinosaurs. And they're referring to the fact of, not just your age, they're referring to the dino juice.
Yeah.
Check out the link in the description below, everyone, and I'm going to read a quote here. It's not made from dead dinosaurs. So that's just a farce that people like to quote. Read the link below. And I'm going to read a little section of it now to you. Most of the fossil fuel material we use today comes from algae, bacteria and plants. It's not dino juice. It's what I just said it is. We're not old fossils. Well, maybe I am an old fossil. But when we talk about fossil fuels, can we stop talking about dinosaurs? And then I think the other thing I'd like to say is, it sounds like I'm literally now on a podium.
Funny you should say that.
It's funny I should say that.
As your Prime Minister.
If anybody ever uses in a discussion that the reason they're doing the electric vehicle is because of saving the planet,
No.
walk away. And the reason is they're not saving the planet. Let me explain. So the planet has been around, and I wasn't here, believe it or not, when this happened, but I think the planet's been around for about 4.5–5 billion years. It's been around a while. We in our current form have been around for about 200,000 years. Okay, if you want to go back in ancestry history, maybe 6 million. But in our current form, we'll say 200,000 years. No matter what we do to the planet while we're still around, A, we think we're clever, but we're not that clever. We couldn't save the planet even if we wanted to. And B, the planet doesn't need saving. What we're trying to say is we're trying to keep the planet habitable for us to live in. The planet's fine. The planet's going nowhere. At some point, as a human race, we're going to drop off. The planet will spit us out and we'll be just a part of the planet's history. Whatever we do with fossil fuels or whatever, the planet will erase that over time and it'll be like we never existed. So if somebody says to you, saving the planet, no, we're not. What we're trying to do is maintain a certain level of climate for us to survive in it. Mm. And I think the very last thing for me would, and I might as well get it out now because it's literally in my head and on my notes, is when people say that the cars are green, the battery electric vehicles, because of course they're driving along, they're not emitting. And yes, if I lived on the side of a busy road, I'll put my hypocrite cap on and say yes, I would prefer a battery electric vehicle to be stuck in traffic than a petrol or diesel. That's just fact. It's where we are.
However, buy a motorcycle, then you won't have to get stuck in traffic.
However, well, if it's an electric one, of course, still no pollution anyway. However, we need to be aware of something, and we've touched on it already in this video. Yes, battery electric vehicles are clean at the point of use. The NHS in the UK is free at the point of use, but there's been a massive cost to get us there. So obviously with the NHS, there's been a massive cost in the form of taxation. We've paid big time to be able to enjoy a service that's free at the point of use. The battery electric vehicle in principle is the same. It's completely clean at the point of use, but we've had a horrendous amount of damage done to the environment to produce it. Do you see my point? Do you see how the analogy works?
Yeah.
So where do I see the future? And then I'm going to ask Ak where he sees the future is. I see the future as a balance of a mixture of a lot of things. Battery electric vehicles definitely have a place. I've driven one. I enjoyed it. I think for certain applications and certain uses and certain owners, it'll be absolutely perfect. Bring it on and let the technology keep improving. Things like range anxiety will be a joke in the future. It'll be like, do you remember when we used to worry about range? But there has to be other things for heavy use, particularly like trucks and ships and planes, which are much heavier polluters than the humble car that's driving around our streets today. There's going to have to be alternative solutions, including probably hydrogen, because that ultimately emits just water out the back, or cleaner fuels. Battery electric vehicles will not be 100% in 20, 30 years' time. Some will be battery, some will be cleaner fuels, some will be hydrogen. They're not the only solution, they are part of the solution. Ak, I feel like I am on that podium. What's your thoughts? And why haven't you ridden an electric bike yet?
I'm with you with regards to the planet. Not because I'm aware of that until I started doing research for this video. And I came across a video for which we're going to put a link below by an American comedian, sadly no longer with us, by the name of George Carlin.
Oh, I know him well.
Yeah.
Excellent comedian.
The piece is called The Planet is Fine.
One of the best.
You know, planet's been here for billions of years. We've only been here for a couple of hundred. We've only been in heavy industry, the Industrial Revolution.
For probably 100 years?
Yeah, about 100. He said about 100, 150 years.
Yeah.
But basically up until, year dot to now, we've had like floods, plagues, volcanoes. And because we're the human race and we think we're the bee's knees, that we have the arrogance to believe that getting rid of a few plastic bags and recycling aluminium cans is going to make a difference. And he basically says, no, he says the planet is absolutely fine. The human race, arguably, at some point in the future, will be struck off as a failed biological experiment.
Ironically, I haven't seen this clip, but I want to see this clip.
We'll be struck off as a failed biological experiment. He said, the planet's not going anywhere. He says, we are. He says, we're FUCK'd.
Yeah.
There's no issues with the planet. Yeah. The planet will just basically shake us off.
We're self-destructive, aren't we?
The planet's just going to shake the human race off like a bad case of fleas. And I actually agree, and you're actually right. If you think about how long the planet's been here and what it's been through in relation to what we've done in a very, very, very short period of time in the whole history of the Earth.
I mean, we've not done it proud. A little footnote, because absolutely, it sounds like we're on the same page. Let us know what page you're on. A little interesting fact if we're going to end this video.
Go on.
This little country, albeit with 70 million people, called the United Kingdom.
What, on this teeny little island?
On this tiny little island.
Wow.
The government, like you said, is kind of pushing us
Towards
choice.
EV.
Even though, in my opinion, that's not going to happen, because since when did a government policy ever get delivered on time, etc.?
Yeah.
So,
U-turn anyone?
famous saying from Margaret Thatcher. If you think of our humble little country, the United Kingdom, with about 70 million people, we're about to be kind of allegedly forced to move into just one only direction, because it's the only fix for it, which is battery electric vehicles. When we know that governments aren't known for delivering on policies anyway, so anyone that actually thinks that's going to happen at 2030, 2035, they really need to get a grip and look back in history. But let's assume that they think that that's going to happen. Here's just a little ending thought, shall we say. In China at the moment, ironically, that's making most of the battery electric vehicles, how many coal-fired power stations do you think they've currently got? Thanks for watching, everyone. See you on the next one.
See you then.
As your Prime Minister, the government remains committed to delivering the net zero mandate. We are working extremely hard and continue to support, both financially and technically, with key stakeholders to deliver our objectives. We have and continue to listen to the people, the manufacturers, the businesses, and from all of these discussions have agreed that with new hybrid technology that we will meet our zero emissions target. We will achieve this goal by means of a phased, fair and realistic approach. It is therefore the government's decision that vehicles propelled using hybrid technology and the new cleaner fuels will continue to be permitted to be sold till the year 2040. This is not a U-turn. This is not a backtrack. This is simply your government listening to the people and the manufacturers, but still delivering on their net zero promise. Thank you.